So 1 year into it, what are we seeing? Are we seeing a lot less PAGA cases filed because of the reforms just not having as much liability out there for employers? And unfortunately, the PAGA numbers are not showing that. It's public records. I just looked this up yesterday. We've been tracking the number of these PAGA letters that are filed with the LWDA. And this is the first step that a plaintiff's attorney has to take in order to file a PAGA case. They have to file this letter with the LWDA, Labor Workforce Development Agency, an agency with the state of California. The employer CC'd on that letter as well, and they have to set out the facts and theories of the PAGA lawsuit. So this is really when the first time employers get an idea that this PAGA lawsuit might be coming. And then we're tracking the number of these PAGA letters. Doesn't necessarily mean that it resulted in a lawsuit, but it's a pretty good indication on how many PAGA lawsuits were actually filed. And here in this trend line, you can see it's definitely going up and to the right. In 2020 was when COVID hit, so we saw a decrease in the number of the PAGA letters. I think it's because less people are actually in the workplace working. But and then we had this big drop in 2022, but then it jumped up significantly in 2023, and we've just been on the rise since then. So in 2025, based on the numbers so far, I'm projecting that we're going to see the highest number of the LWDA PAGA letters filed here in 2025. We're on track to see that. Just to break it down a little more, I looked at the PAGA letters filed in 2024 and 2025 per month. So at the left of this slide is January 2024, and at the right of the slide is May 2025. And what we've got here, just to walk you through, the reform happened in June of 2024. And that's where you see this big increase, over 1,200, nearly 1,300 PAGA letters filed in June of 2024. What was going on there, plaintiffs' attorneys heard that there was going to be a reform that was going to be passed. They filed all these PAGA letters trying to beat the reform and get these cases in to have the old PAGA applied to their cases. So we saw that big uptick in June of last year. And then it dropped off a bit in July, but as you can see, it's been ticking up and getting back to pre-reform numbers here. So we're not seeing a big decrease, and I've got a number of thoughts on that as well. You know, if there's just less money out there, maybe plaintiff's attorney they have to file more of the PAGA cases just to keep the volume up and to be making as much money as prior to the reform for their law firms. And it's important just to understand that for a minute. I want to talk about that. The plaintiff's law firms get paid on a contingency basis. So they need to pick a good case and they need to recover some money to get a recovery that's approved by a judge in these cases, in a PAGA case. So, and typically they take a percentage of what the total recovery is. So they're out there looking for employers that aren't compliant with the labor code. And that's something we preach to our clients. You just don't want to be the low-hanging fruit in these types of cases. So it's super helpful to have a client that's trying their best to comply with the labor code and taking reasonable efforts to comply. One, now we've got this argument that the penalties are capped at 15%. And two, it just helps us communicate to plaintiffs' counsel, there's just not a lot of money there in this case with this client. And they need to go to a different case where the employer didn't know their obligations at all, weren't taking any steps. And it just helps a lot when you're not the low-hanging fruit, you don't have any blatant violations. And if you can do that, it's going to protect yourself in the long run too.